I am attempting to do these weekly lives to keep me accountable for showing up on my YouTube channel. And the reason why I haven't shown up is because no matter how much I have attempted, I'm not interested in recording, editing, and posting long form videos. I could do that on Reels, but when it comes to long form videos, I just like to talk because I'm a natural teacher. So if you've been in my containers, you know that that's just what I naturally love to do is teach. And recording, looking at the camera, looking at my notes, looking at the camera. I'm also just do that in front of people because that's what I do all the time. So I decided to take the barrier out of the way so I could commit to showing up here on my channel and giving you all, I would say, phenomenal information in regards to how to regulate your nervous system, but not in that generic, you know, uh, way that you're hearing it, more so mastering, I'm going to say mastering your nervous system. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Tahira Seher. And as I move through the content, I will continue to share my story. Okay? Because this is about y'all, it's not about me. However, for you all to get to know me better, for the people who are just coming into the space, I will continue to share my story. So I work with founders, leaders, CEOs, women who are in positions of leadership, no matter if you are a entrepreneur, full-time entrepreneur like myself, no matter if you're a CEO at a business, or if you're just starting, you're just beginning this entrepreneur journey, you want to take it seriously, and you are also transitioning or wanting to transition out of a regular 9 to 5. And what you're looking for is ways to scale, ways to scale your income, ways to scale your visibility. You feel it that it is your time to shine. We are in 2026, halfway through 2026, and I haven't, at least from where I'm sitting, haven't seen so many self-made millionaires being generated in this time, during this time, versus the other years that I've been on this earth. Okay. So this is the era of the becoming of a millionaire. This is how I'm saying it. This is what I see. And there is no excuses. And it's really about, quite honestly, getting yourself out of your comfort zone and really doing the work. No more hiding. Okay. And also quit wasting time on trying to figure everything out because you're not going to. I mean, again, I'm look what happened with me and just trying to get on here. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. And guess what? I am still showing up because I am not interested in wasting time. I am not interested in living from fear and excuses. If you know a little bit of background of my spiritual work, I am what is considered, I don't like to say it all the time and say it in a way where it's like I am, but I am a initiated shaman who has been working in the spiritual and healing realms for over 20 years. I have worked with many master mentors, ranging from Elder Malidoma Patrice Sum, who was an African shaman and a psychologist. I did not go through the long-term initiate, initiations with him because I wasn't interested in being initiated into a specific lineage. But I have trained with him in his containers that he had did when he was still um, alive here. He is now transitioned into an ancestor. And also, I studied with a Aboga shaman. And if you don't know what Aboga is, um, it is a medicine that starts in the roots. So I began to study with him. He also helped me train in Kambo, Rape, Sananga, all types of different jungle medicines. He was my first mentor. And again, if you don't know what a boga is, I don't think I explained that clearly. It is a root medicine from Africa. Okay. Then I also I'm a former student of Joel. He is an ayahuasca shaman, and I was training with him for over 7 years here in the Dominican Republic, where I have a retreat center called Oasis in the Mountains. Okay, so I know what it is to have a mentor, to have a teacher. I have had spiritual teachers, I have had business teachers, business mentors. It is important as you are going through this because there is a lot of psychological bears that come up, especially when you're ready to scale. All right, so I put a little presentation together and we're going to go through the presentation. All right. And let me know in the comments for the people who watch this later, do y'all like presentations? Do y'all like to see like slides and things of that nature? I personally love the slides because it keeps me focused because I can ramble. If you haven't noticed that already, I can ramble. So I want to stay on point by having these slides. All right, so we're going to begin. And so your revenue has a nervous system. What do I mean by that? I mean that there are inherited patterns that are in the DNA that run the way you function in life. Now, you may not be conscious about it, but your nervous system is literally how you show up in life. Literally. It is how you make your decisions. And based upon your experiences, where you live at, your upbringing, all of that, your nervous system is conditioned in a certain way. Now, a lot of us come from a background, especially in the Western world, of constantly going, constantly chasing, but we are not focused in on the right things. We're focusing in on constantly, I call it being on a mental plantation of what the system says we're supposed to do in order to be successful. And a lot of us feel that. So that's why a lot of us are transitioning over to having our own businesses because we realize there is a ceiling. However, due to the paycheck mentality, because that's what we've been trained in, we have this very subconscious conditioning and program around scaling. Okay. And so that is your revenue. I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? Ceiling. That's your revenue ceiling that you have been trained in, not really even knowing. Okay. So this is for you if you're already building, you have invested in strategy, coaching, and frameworks, and you're not afraid to do the work. You are not afraid to put your work out there, to put yourself out there, because you know visibility is important and you're not interested in being left behind. You're spiritually aware and you're doing the inner work, meaning that you have done that inner deep work where it is not conflicting how you show up, and you're allowing your spiritual wisdom to guide you. Because one thing that I teach is that you can't have one without the other. So when it comes to sovereignty, sovereignty is about being spiritually sovereign and being financially sovereign. And sovereignty doesn't mean you have to revoke your spiritual practice or your beliefs or anything like that. It's this understanding, for example, and I'm just using these terms. If you know that there is a divine source, a God, a supreme being, then we are a part of that creator. We're a part of that creation. So therefore, we are sovereign just as much as that supreme being, that divine self. And then that's why I always say all is self, because you're not separate from the abundance that that divine um, expresses and functions from, because we are expressions of the divine. So it's very simple. So you are spiritually aware, you have an offer, meaning you have something that can really impact people, transform people. You know that whatever it is that you are offering is going to change people's lives. Okay. You may even have an audience. So when I say audience, that doesn't necessarily mean it's on YouTube, Instagram, doesn't necessarily mean it's on social media, but maybe it's that you have a community, you have a store, you have a business outside of social media, and you have real revenue coming in, which means that you are generating revenue from your business. Now, we're going to talk about scaling as the weeks go and things of that nature. So don't judge yourself if the revenue is not where you want it to be, or where I'm going to rename that, where you desire it to be. But you are making money from your business. Like, congratulate yourself for making money from your business, because to even do that is an accomplishment. All right. And yet something is still keeping you capped, meaning that you have the strategy, you have practiced the strategies, you have done the coaching, you are spiritually mature, you have this offer, you have revenue coming, but you are ready for more. So know that you don't lack potential. You're here because something in your system is overriding it. So you already know something's off. Let's talk about pricing. It is one of the biggest things I talk about with my private clients is pricing. We tend, as people who serve, and again, coming from that paycheck mentality, coming from the conditioning that our value is based upon time, in a sense where we're not valuing our time and our time is limited, we tend to undercharge and tell yourself it's about accessibility. But the truth is, your nervous system doesn't feel safe asking for what you're worth. That is the hard truth of it. Your nervous system has been so conditioned to just survive because of the paycheck mentality. People even have a hard time negotiating their salary because they're too busy thinking about what they need. So they are thinking about, okay, well, I need to pay bills. I need to take care of the basic necessities that, yes, that is your responsibility, but needs are even limited. And this is why I say desires. When you actually start to meditate on how you want to live a life of desire, you begin to open yourself up to the dream of accessing that. But we've been so trained in the need, and the want is even limiting too. So ask yourself this: are you living from desires, or are you living from the needs? Because that is also a reflection of your self-worth. Then there's selling. This is a big one, big one. And all these things, y'all, that I talk about, it's because I have been through it myself. I have many stories of the roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur. Okay. And I will continue to share that knowledge and share the stories as we go. But selling, you hesitate before sending the pitch. You over explain. This is a big one, especially for women. We over explain when we just desire something. You ever notice? I remember talking to a woman, and we're just talking about just how we enjoy our lifestyles. And I talk about traveling business class, first class all the time because that's what I desire. I enjoy traveling like that. I am all about comfort. And later I'll probably get me a jet. That's just how I roll. And when I asked her what her desires were, like, just again, lifestyle choices, everything that she said, she had to back it up with an explanation. She couldn't just say it like how I just said it. And I asked her, why do you feel the need to over explain your desires to me? And she said, I never even thought about that. Like, I'm so used to just explaining because we've been so conditioned to feel shame around our desires, especially as women. And what that does is that you're literally telling, if you want to call it the universe, if you want to call it the field, whatever it is, you're literally telling the consciousness that you're not worthy of what you're even asking for. And you want to know why it's not manifesting, because you keep on over and explaining yourself. You keep on doubting yourself and shaming yourself. So guess what that's going to bring? More experiences of shame and doubt. It is all about understanding the way this works. And there is laws that are just put in place, no matter if we like it or not. So over explaining is a default mechanism of not trusting yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, then you're not going to be good at selling. Okay. And then receiving. Money comes in and then you immediately find somewhere to send it. You cannot hold it. Expansion triggers contraction. So you may be generating income and the income may be good, but as soon as you receive it, you already delegated it to things that are important. But one of the things that my dad always taught me was that to pay myself first. And I didn't realize the importance of that simple statement, especially as I became an entrepreneur. Because at the beginning, I wasn't paying myself. At the beginning, I was constantly bringing in the income and then constantly just giving it to bills, giving it to other things I just had to take care of, right? And that was my excuse. I have to take care of these things because if I don't take care of them, then things are going to fall apart. Like I have to pay my rent, I have to do X, Y, and Z. But what about investing into Tahira without the obligation? Because the obligations are going to be there. But what about putting some money to the side for Tahira's world, Tahira's investment plan? Because I wanted to buy land. I wanted to move to another country, like all these things, right? That again, the desire to live the life that I seen in my vision, that's investing in Tahira. The rent, the bills, the car payments, those are investments too, as to the material. However, what I was doing was I kept on doing too much output and not enough input into the the long term of buying land, building my home, things of that nature. That is an internal investment. Okay. So what happens is that again, your nervous system gets trained like this. So it doesn't feel safe enough to hold. And it is a retraining process that you have to go through in order to actually keep some money for yourself. Okay. Then you have visibility. You know you need to show up more, but something keeps you pulling back. Not laziness, it's your system protecting you from being seen. And I talk about this in my previous videos around how the best thing you could do, especially as a small business, is to show up on these social media platforms. I mean, this YouTube is not really considered a social media platform per se, but it's still putting yourself out there. And I explained at the beginning of this video, the reason why I haven't been on here was because I just don't like pushing the record button and just talking to the camera. And there's nobody here. Like I'm just talking to myself. Like I just am not interested in that. And I had to be honest with myself. So I said, okay, Tahira, what can I do in order to show up on my YouTube? Because what you got to understand is that your social media platforms are assets. That's how I look at it. YouTube is an asset to signal to the people who are looking for this clarity. They're interested in the information. They're interested in my frameworks. So I got to show up. Otherwise, they don't know. And Instagram is another place to show up. And then you have Facebook, you have TikTok, and you can delegate which ones are more important. However, either way, visibility is what's going to feed your ecosystem, because you got to continue to nourish your ecosystem of self and of your offerings. And what I also really honed in on is that this is not just about me. This is about the people who I'm here to serve. And anytime when we limit ourselves and shrink ourselves based upon not interested in working through the discomfort, because it can be very uncomfortable at first, but not willing to do that work, we are now out of alignment of our assignment of what we're supposed to be doing here. And all of us have some type of assignment to serve. It may not be exactly this, but working through the growing pains of what that looks like helped you to get stronger. And you're going to look awkward and you may sound awkward, but you keep going because all you're doing is training yourself to hold more capacity so you can receive more and people can see and hear your message. You never know, no matter how small or no matter how big your impact can be on somebody, but you got to show up. Okay. So I want to talk about this. It is not your strategy that is stopping you from scaling. A lot of times, and I have seen this in the spiritual world as well, is that people want to just take information and put it on top of a very shaky foundation. And that's exactly what's happening when you're trying to strategize your way out of doing the inner work. So you have the frameworks, you know the tactics, you understand positioning. The gap is not your knowledge, it is your nervous system. Your nervous system is running old financial scripts, one written by scarcity. And again, it doesn't have to be from your parents. It could be environmental. The systems that we grew up in. You'd be surprised how deep that goes into your nervous system and how you generate money. Inherit it through your lineage. And this is the conversation that I don't see a lot of people who are in the industry of business and wealth talk about, is the ancestral inherited patterns that all of us have. All of us have some type of ancestral roots. Doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, it don't matter. We all have ancestors and they live in our genetics. They live in our DNA. Even if you can't pinpoint an ancestor, well, I don't know who my ancestors are. Guess what? You still have them, okay? You still got ancestors. And when you do that deeper ancestral work, and I'm not just referring to, little rituals here and there, I'm talking about tapping into ancestral consciousness and technologies, you begin to understand that there is inheritance. There is a little inheritance that you have received. Why did you receive it out of everybody? Because you were built to metabolize whatever it was that they couldn't. And somebody said something about, well, they didn't say it directly to me, but it was a question around what that sounds like bondage. That is not bondage. It is knowing that part of being in this life is trade-offs. You can't ask for everything to be good and there's no trade-off. That's not law. Now we're talking about laws of alchemy that play in every religion and spiritual framework. There is the as above and so below in everything. So therefore, when you are encountering your ancestors and you start working with them from intention, you realize that there is a trade-off of understanding that the reason why you may be carrying anxiety, or it may just come up as you're moving through scaling, as you're moving through visibility, you're doing things that, according to what you know of your quote unquote bloodline, they never experienced. So you are the first. You're the first that is going to break the scarcity in your family. That is huge, but that takes a lot of work. because of the wiring. And that's just the truth. You can't spiritually bypass it. If you try to, you will fall. You will get left behind. And it's a disservice because it's a little bit, I would say, even selfish to really think that you can do this by yourself. And then saying, okay, well, I'll just go straight to the divine, right? And that's a great way of looking at it. But the divine is within us. It's in that sovereignty that lives inside of us. It is the conscious state that lives inside of us. Therefore, your ancestors are not separate from that. And even with the quote unquote divine, there's still trade offs. If everything was so perfect, then we will be living in a perfect harmonic world. And the truth is, we don't. There are trade offs living in this world. Okay, I know I just went through a little rant there, but this was on my mind because one of my students asked me this, and it was a great question. It was a good question. It wasn't her question. She was just, referring to some of the questions that her family had, but it was good questions. And I really had to sit with this and say, okay, what is really going on here? And the thing is, when we talk about the ancestors, people tend to get caught up in the pain and the trauma. But on the flip side of inheriting to metabolize the pain and the trauma, there is the wealth, there is the abundance. And it's tied into you becoming wealthy here. It's really that simple. You don't have to live in the pain and suffering. That's not what your ancestors want. It's just recognizing that there is patterns that we have been conditioned into through our mother's womb that have been passed down to us. That's all. So you can't ignore it. That's all I'm saying. You can't ignore it. You could try. You could try. Okay. So when you are working through scaling, receiving more income, and so forth, you are going to go through an initiation of discomfort. It's going to happen. And this is where a lot of people stop. They stop and they say, you know what? I can't do this, or this is a sign that this is not for me. No, that is like stopping working out because it gets more challenging. You go to the gym, the trainer starts you off with 5-pound weights. I always use this because it's a very simple example of understanding. And you're training, and it's borderline challenging, but you can do it. Over a couple of weeks, you get stronger. And then next thing you know, you go in there and he has doubled your weight. Now you're lifting 10 weights. Okay. And you're like, but I just got used to doing, these 5-pound exercises, but the muscles break down in order for them to be rebuilt. So it is through the discomfort and sometimes painful to continue so you can get stronger. It's the same thing when it comes to recalibrating your nervous system. It's the same exact thing. You don't run away from the discomfort, you face the discomfort. So strategy cannot overwrite a somatic pattern. Only recalibration can. So as I talked about, where scarcity actually lives, the pricing. Body tightens, lowering numbers, not feeling worthy of the price that you know you deserve. And then selling, hesitation before offers, over explaining your price. Receiving, money arrives, system roots it away. You let the external quote unquote responsibility obligations. Take heed before you actually receive, and put some money inside yourself, inside that account that is just for you and the long term goals that you have. Expansion feels unsafe. Then you have the lineage, the ancestral patterns, wealth linked to danger, body learned scarcity. All right. So just going over it again, when it comes to your pricing, I remember when I began the Ecology of Shamanism school, and this was about 6 years ago. And the price for tuition was so disrespectful, y'all. It was so disrespectful. For everything that they were getting, it was truly disrespectful. Okay. However, being in that scarcity, being in I just want to help people, being in that mindset, you know, I'm spiritually called, all this stuff, I underpriced, like big time, big time. Like for 12, no, it was 2 years at that time, 2 years, 2 year apprenticeship. I think I was like, I don't even want to say it out loud, but I think it was like maybe $3,000. Like like that. I hear it, and I'm just like, wow, to hear it. But hey, that's growing pains, right? And so I had to realize, yeah, these people are gaining a lot from what I'm offering. Meanwhile, I'm looking at my bank account and I'm like, the math ain't mathing. It's not aligning. And so I made a declaration to raise the floor, as they say. And so after the first, it was all I needed to learn that lesson one time. After that, I raised the floor, and I went from 3,000 to 6,500, right? Again, still not all the way, but better. And then the refinement came in with the school, lessons came in differently. The wisdom was much more expansive. Everything was getting refined. So guess what? I'm being refined. So therefore, the price had to reflect that. So boom, raise the floor again to 10,000. And also lessen the time, because I realized what I was doing. I was in that paycheck mentality because we're so used to selling our time instead of looking at the quality and the value that we're bringing to people. So instead of 2 years, year and a half. And then it went from a year and a half to just a year. And now I'm in the last cycle of the school. The school is no longer, because I transitioned over to a new level of my services. However, the lessons were all about understanding that there are inherited patterns that keep us away from our abundance if we are not ready to go deeper within the why so much, and just allow, based upon people wanting to work with me, based upon the service of being a quote unquote healer, all of that. It's all based upon scarcity. Simple as that. Simple as that. And so it's really looking at yourself more deeply, really taking a good look at that. All right. And I already talked about in your selling, in your receiving, money arrives in your system immediately roots it somewhere else. You cannot sit inside the expansion, holding it feels unsafe. And I talked about in your lineage, this is not just yours. These patterns were passed down. That's what's really deep. You get real deep into this work, it's deep in regards to how embedded these patterns are. Your body learned that wealth was dangerous, scarce, or not for people like you. Ancestral scarcity does not respond to affirmations, it responds to recalibration, like I said. And you'd be surprised that sometimes it kind of skips a generation and it goes to you. So you may be looking at your parents or your, maybe your brother or someone in the home who actually has a really good relationship with money. And you grew up in the same household, you grew up from the same family, but there's something that you're not catching. And that means you were meant to metabolize it. You were meant to actually break the generational bondage of wealth. All right. I'm not I'm not a curse person. I don't say curses. It's a bondage. It's due to the development, the human psychology of our history of our people. Okay. So it's not this woo-woo thing. It's human psychology. All right. So seeing it is not the same as shifting it. You have done the mindset work, you have taken the courses, you have hired the coaches, you have done enough inner work to see the pattern clearly. You may have even taken my revenue nervous system audit that gives you a full-blown diagnostic assessment as to the 4 layers that are running your money narrative, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And yet the ceiling is still there. And even after all the information, you're not moving really any differently. You're doing a little, oh, I'm just going to take my time. What I was reflecting on earlier was how, and I just got out of this powerful business class before I jumped on here, very powerful business class. And what she was saying was what I've been saying is that there are more millionaires that are being created now than ever, meaning that this now, the time is now. It's not later. It's not when you feel comfortable. It's not when you feel okay. It's now. Like taking that initiative to go all in because the door is open. The door is wide open. There is no excuse. And being strategic upon what information you're taking in, and guess what? Applying the information, like actually taking the action steps. It is amazing that so many people, because we live in the information world, we absorb, and don't do a damn thing with it. That's wasting time. That's scarcity. That's not believing that you can. So it is now, the time is now to start to really build the capacity to become, even if you're not interested in becoming a millionaire, but you want to make more money, you want to scale your business, this is the time. Because the opportunity is not going to always be here. Look what the era that we're in. We're in the AI era. Then before we were in the industrial era. So we go through these transitions and these shifts. Don't think that this is just going to stay, because it's not. That's not evolution. So honor that you have the awareness and take the strategic action as to the next step. Okay. So that gap between knowing what is in the way and actually moving past that is not a willpower problem. It is not a mindset problem. It's the difference between cognitive awareness and somatic recalibration. Seeing a pattern does not dissolve it. Working with the nervous system at the body level does. And this is the work most programs skip. And it's also the reason why you're still here. So if you're still here, if you made it through all the, you know, I don't even know if that was, technical problems. That was just me trying to orient myself on YouTube. If you're still here, congratulate yourself and thank you for being here. So, what becomes available when the pattern shifts? Okay. What becomes available? Your price from your value, not your fear. So, and I'm telling you, it feels so good. It feels so good when you ask, or I would even say command, what you're worth. You break free from that level of consciousness that kept you stuck, right? So you actually just break the belief system like that, and you just raise the floor. And what I learned about raising the floor, guess what? Everybody can't come with you. Not because you don't want them to, but because they may not be ready. So you're going to leave some people behind. And guess what? That's okay. They were there for a season. You learned, you grow, you keep going. You don't take it personal. They shouldn't take it personal either, but that's between them. You're not going back to save them and rescuing them because you have decided to fully claim your position in yourself. That takes a lot of willpower. And it's simple, but the work is there. What I mean, the psychological training that it takes to say, this is where I'm at and this is where you're going to meet me, takes training. But the trade-off is liberation. Okay. You sell from desire, not need. The conversation changes when you're not operating from survival. Clients feel the difference. So one of the things I stopped doing was actually trying to convince people about what I offer. It is exhausting. And it's a very old business uh, skill to try to sell people by convincing. Technically, selling is not about convincing, it's about persuasion. So, what happens when you're coming from that level of persuasion, you are no longer functioning from the mechanism of the default mode of thinking that they're not going to buy from you, so you have to convince them. It's like, no, they should take advantage of your service because you know it's going to transform them. So, do you even hear the difference? So, when you get on that sales call, that's the energy you're coming from. You're coming from a level of helping them to see their patterns so they can make a clear decision. And yet, at the same time, if they say no, you're not chasing them. And it doesn't devalue your offering, it doesn't devalue your service. It just wasn't in alignment. However, when you're speaking to somebody that already knows, and what I mean by that, and this is where visibility comes into mind, when you're putting yourself out there, you're giving value to the world by doing videos, by making content. You're doing all that. The people who are listening will already know if they want to work with you or not. So when they get on a sales call, they're like, sign me up. That's the beauty about being visible, that your content is what quote unquote sells, and all you're doing during that transaction of the sales call is just confirming. Okay. You hold what you earn. Money stays built. Money stays, it builds. You stop leaking it in the moment it arrives. So, like my dad always says, pay yourself first. Don't allow external responsibilities dictate what you know, you desire, and you are building outside of those responsibilities. Put yourself in a position of being the first that actually receives it and holds it with no excuses. You move when opportunities appear. So you stop freezing at the threshold. A lot of women are, wow, a lot of women are in the threshold right now. They just sitting in there. And it's like, you got to learn to move. No more circling the same feeling. You're done. It's exhausting. You're not going to get anywhere by remaining in the threshold. Put it like this: either you grow or you go backwards. I'm going to say it again: either you grow, you develop, or you move backwards. It gets worse. It gets worse. So you got to choose and decide and move. Okay? You operate from desire, not scarcity. I've been saying desire this whole time. And I'll go into another video about what that really is. But the question shifts from what do I need to what do I want? But most importantly, what do I desire? Because even the wants, you want to be careful with that. That want can also have a limited track on it. But the desire is fluid, it's flowing. So that is where real revenue growth lives, when you start living from the desire. So I'm going to stop here because it's 2 o'clock, but I want to just share an offering that I will be doing. And this pertains to the people who are in the Revenue Nervous System Audit group. You have already purchased the audit. Okay, so if you see this message, this is for you. And this is for anybody else who is interested. So this is how you go all the way through it. The Revenue Nervous System Decode cohort that is coming out in August is a cohort that's designed for people who are truly ready to take that next step. So what you receive: the precise language for your specific revenue nervous system pattern in real time. So you already got the assessment, the results are there. Now you're getting into the language of those patterns, because language impacts your psychology of how you operate. Then you have the recalibration at the somatic and ancestral level, so the patterns loses its grip. A framework for moving from need focus to desire focus in your business. Okay. So you start to actually move in a way where it's more fluid. It doesn't feel forced. Then the action capacity that follows regulation, not motivation capacity. Because again, we live in such a informational world that we absorb all this information, but yet you ain't taking the action, boo. You ain't taking action. And it's all about taking action now, not later, Now, and then you'll get a private pre-cohort hot seat with me. And then this is where we all gather in a small group. And, you know, when I say hot seat, I truly mean it. Like, come in ready to go through the patterns and the resistance that you need to move through so you can anchor yourself to that next level. Okay. It's 8 women only. Men are allowed. The cohort is intentionally small because the work requires real space for each woman's pattern to be seen and recalibrated specifically. However, start here before you do anything else. Start here before you do anything else. Notice the next time you hesitate before a financial decision. Don't analyze it. Don't fix it. Just notice what happens in your body in that moment. That is the data. Even now, as you're watching, you may be like, okay, I'm interested in that, but how much is it? How much is it? Relax. Remember, it's all about, is this in alignment to what you desire? Yes or no? Leave it at that. This is how you start to train your nervous system to regulate in real time. Number 2, write down the last time you undercharged or adjusted a price down. What were you feeling just before? Name the sensation, not the thought. This is your nervous system's financial signature. And you will get real clarity when you start doing this consistently. Number 3, ask yourself, what do I desire, not what do I need? Scarcity operates in need mode. Expansion lives in desire. Practice naming what you actually want without immediately qualifying it. Okay? And then number 4, if you haven't taken a revenue nervous system audit before you're interested in the Decode cohort, highly recommend you do that because that is a mandatory obligation before you actually come into the cohort, is to take the revenue nervous system audit, because everything that we're working on is based upon the framework that lives inside the audit. So the audit shows you your exact entry point, and if you're ready to go further, it unlocks access to the founders rate for the Decode cohort, because I'm giving the founders rate. So 2 ways to move forward. You have the revenue nervous system audit, $27. I'll have the link in the description. See your exact pattern, identify where scarcity is operating in your pricing, selling, receiving, and holding. Okay. And then, which I didn't put in the slides, it says link your audit link. I didn't do that. I'll have it in the description. Okay. And this is for audit purchaser only. You have the revenue nervous system Decode cohort. This is going to take you all the way through the pattern, recalibrate at the bottom, and ancestral level, because that ancestral level is tricky. However, with guidance, it will shift everything in your life. And I'm telling you, when I say it will shift everything in your life, things happen on a level of magic, as people say. Okay. 8 women only, and men are welcome. Founders rate $1,997 paid in full, or $1,097, and you could pay it through a payment plan. Founders pricing closes in 48 hours. So now if you see this later, then you already know. However, for the people who are in the Decode cohort already, you're in the community, you would have 48 hours. Okay. And then after that, this opens publicly at 2,997. All right. So if you're interested in joining, first, take the audit. All right. Take the audit. And then after that, when you feel, but again, got to be within 48 hours, ready to go to the next level, the application for the Decode will be available. All right. And that is it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for showing up, being here. I really appreciate everybody. And I will see you all next week. All right. Thank you. And I'm just trying to exit out of here. Okay.